Hey everyone, you're here with Perfect Gardens. Always like to start off with our values and our value statement, because this is how we make decisions, and we always like to make decisions aligned with our values. So, our values are integrity. Make the conscious choice to acknowledge the decisions we make and their consequences. 2. Respect. Create a safe environment for the people within the community. 3. Environment. Growing without fear of limitation. 4. Teamwork. Get up and help without being asked. About us, mission statement: we help you grow. That's by doing our mission on a daily basis. We feel that's how we'll get to our vision, and our vision is being the online store for hydro stores without an online presence. Speaker today is Mark Boutwell II, Grow Coach here at PerfectGardens.com. I have 6 years of in the field grow coaching experience. Our team has enjoyed the opportunity to participate in creating perfect growing environments with outdoor, greenhouse, hoop house, and indoor rooms being as large as 400 plus lights. Let's go ahead and begin. Hey everyone, so we have some beautiful trenches that need to be filled early in the season, and one of our clients sent us over his local options for soil. Since our focus with this grow client has been to grow with living soil and doing our best to get away from getting away from man-made fertilizers, it's very important to actually take in consideration your soil medium and what the composition of the soil medium and why people are creating the soil the way they're creating it. So I'm going to go through each of these soils and explain a little bit more, and then we'll digress into understanding some of the having a full understanding of the consequences. And consequences can be good and they can be bad. It's either or. You know, our society uses consequences as bad, but I like to use consequences as when you use that word, it kind of makes you think for a second, and it makes you think, okay, is this going to be a more productive decision in life, or is this going to be a less productive decision in life? So let's go ahead and go through this, and let's understand understand why people do what they do, and then we'll go into the understanding of the consequences to each of these soils, and whether they're going to lead us into a direction that is in line with our values and is going to get us closer to our vision. So, right here, the mission at Perfect Gardens is to help you grow. This is what we're going to do. We're going to focus on helping you grow. We're going to go through again. Apologize if I misspeak at all. A Grow Pro is an all organic soilless mix made by cocoa peat, peat moss, redwood compost, perlite, rice hulls, and so on. You can go ahead and go through here. I'll make sure to include the link. Big part to focus on. It's a soilless mix. We'll go to the next one. This is a soilless mix composed of where? Okay, that's again main thing you want to focus on. Soilless mix. See, a lot of people get really focused in on what's going on over here. You know, they're like, oh, look at the bone meal, look at the fish meal, look at the crab meal. Oh my goodness, they got some beneficial bacteria and funguses in this too. This is a great mix. But again, at the end of the day, sometimes people that are creating soils, they're creating a soil medium for a very specific purpose, and you as a grower, if you a lot of the times these guys are producing large amounts, so they're not taking into consideration your specific needs. And so it's always, again, very important to know yourself and know your values, and then how you make decisions on a daily basis, how your company or your organization or even your just small 4x4 grow tent, how are you going to make decisions on a daily basis? And that vision, you know, do you want to grow with biological living soil, or do you want to grow with a synthetic fertilizer? That's always the basic premise for what we always try and focus on. Of course, make a decision in line with your values, but biological versus synthetic. And then the third option right here. Grow Mix is an all-organic and compost of redwood compost, super compost, and super compost is most likely going to be a mushroom base, especially in the area that where he's living right now. There's a lot of agriculture. There's a lot of mushroom farms. They're producing a lot of compost, and it's when that compost gets to them, it actually needs to sit for about 3 months prior to even being mixed. Then even from here, they'll let it sit for another additional 3 months, further breaking down that organic matter. So we'll go ahead and go forward. So what is the compositions? A lot of things. We'll look at these compositions real fast. We'll look at the composition of GoPro potting soil and the Grow Earth garden. So here's the GoPro right here. This one right here, because it's very controlled, it has a pH of 6. The electrical conductivity is 3.1. So what is electrical conductivity? So there's three things. There's parts per million, electrical conductivity, and total dissolved solids. Okay, so the electrical conductivity is basically just measuring the amount of salts that are in the environment, and every atom has a proton, neutron, and electron. Okay, so they have electrical charges, and these different electrical charges, depending upon how high the electrical charge is, it's saying upon how many salts are in the environment. If there's a large amount of salts, your electrical conductivity is going to be really high, and that's going to be bad because it's imagine you being zapped with a little electrical prod. When your heart, you don't feel your heart. You put your finger up to your neck, you'll feel your heart beat. That's a physical response. But your heart actually fires off based upon electrical firings. And if you have if you're dehydrated and you don't have enough salts in your body, you have heart issues. So this is what electrical conductivity is. In my opinion, it is more important to understand what electrical conductivity is than to go into the micromanaging the specifics of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, because electrical conductivity is really measuring the amount of electricity going on between all of these. Okay, so you see all these. A lot of people say, oh, there's a lot of calcium, a lot of magnesium, a lot of potassium, and that's going to help out. Also, nitrogen. There's a little bit to consider with nitrogen. If you go out in nature, you will not find solid nitrogen. You will only find nitrogen in a gas form. Okay, nitrogen is absorbed through the roots and is absorbed through the stomas under the leaves during the day and night exchange, and it's very, very interesting. So when you look at this and you see 4 and you see 80, and these are solid fertilizer, this is fertilizer that's a solid, you know that these are man-made fertilizers. These are incomplete chemical reactions, basically, and that is in a salt form. Because nitrogen is not a solid, it is a gas, and at the end of the day, we create nitrogen in incomplete chemical reactions, and then we use it into our soil to promote green growth and stem development, so that they can grow faster. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like a steroid. You're basically force feeding the plant, making that nitrogen readily available right there, versus the roots having to go through the process, and the stems go through the process of opening up, breathing, and releasing, which is a whole process. So, which at the end of the day, if you had oxygen in your mouth and it was force feeding to your lungs would not be as strong. But when you take a deep breath, even releasing takes control to release at a proper rate. And when you do that, you're actually building your immune system, you're building your lungs, and you're becoming a very more structured system. So again, take into consideration this whole thought process. Another thing is the GoPro Earth. We have a higher parts per million. We have a higher electrical conductivity, and then we have some nitrogen right here, a little bit lower nitrogen. Still, again, this is saying that there are man-made fertilizers in this soil. Okay, that's all it's saying. And then the electrical conductivity is saying that all these this amount of soil or electrical conductivity in soil. So let's go ahead and go a little bit further. Soilless growing medium. What is soilless growing medium? Soilless growing medium is sphagnum peat moss, perlite, vermiculite. It is things that are not have not totally been broken down, and they're also, what do we use it for, and how do we properly use it for specific, for getting closer to very specific ways of growing. Okay, so I really hope that made sense. Okay, so let's dive in a little bit deeper. Okay, so as when you have soilless growing medium, you pick it up. It is very light and fluffy. The reason why that we have had to develop soils like this is because we're using a lot of salt, And when we use a lot of salt, we are having to really force feed these plants a lot of salt, so that when the plants are ready to take up that fertilizer, it'll be there. They're hoping that when they need it, and so. And of course, we have scientific approaches. So we say, okay, they need more of this at this time. They need less of this at that time. They need more of that at that time. But through that entire process, we are going in there and being chemists. We are adding in very specific amounts of fertilizer, and reducing other amounts to become more productive. But that's not how really nature works. Nature, all of it's available. And what actually happens is the microbiology goes out and gets what it specifically needs. So, and we'll get into that a little bit more. So let me go into really quickly how to make this successful if you still want to grow with microbiology, and do it to the best ability. So this right here, what they mixed in, they in this article they might not go into this totally deeper why this is, but there is products out there called soil. It's these little balls of basically a silicone that sucks up water. And it makes this matter. A lot of the microbiology actually lives very symbiotically with this with that type of material. I'll make sure to include a. It's called Soil Moist. Soil Moist, what happens is it's these little granulars that when you give them water, they swell up. Well, the microbiology actually lives very symbiotically with that. The reason I actually recommend people, if they want to use less fertilizer and they want to actually grow as in line with nature as possible when using a soilless growing media, to actually use Soil Moist, because and mix it in there really well, because what it's going to do is it's going to play the part of humus, humus, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But when you use that, the microbiology actually lives in there, and when you fertilize, the water will be absorbed, and the fertilizer will actually absorb into that soil moist, which won't allow, which at the end of the day you won't have to fertilize as much. But because the soil media is so light and fluffy, you are going to have to water a little more often. The soil moist will reduce the amount you need of water, because it swells up and then it slowly releases water, that water over time. So when you actually use this, if you don't use this product, you are going to have to use 2 to 3 times more fertilizer, because and what happens is a number of problems would happen. Not to wear the black hat right now, but when people don't know how to use soilless mediums properly, is that they will fertilize, and they will not keep watering off as often as they need to, because really what they're need to do is they need to provide, or they're hoping to provide the fertilizer as the plant immediately needs it. And if those salts, because how high those parts per million are when using the soilless growing media at times, those salts, if they're left behind, they will dry out and dramatically increase that electrical conductivity, basically creating a heart issue with your soil. Okay, so that's why when you're using soilless growing medias, you have to know when the plants are actually being taking up the nutrients. You're going to have to make sure that the salts are not being you're not drying out your soil, so that there's also always a very nice a lower electrical conductivity, as well as there's a nice even exchange of nutrients because your buffer, or that media medium that that those nutrients are actually transferring from your roots and your soil is water. Okay, so if you don't have water, those salts cannot be absorbed into that water and then be taken up into your roots. So if you dehydrate your soil, then those salts are going to be left behind, increasing your electrical conductivity, and it's going to fry your root systems, which your root systems are absolutely everything. So these types of soils, possibly a lot of indoor growers use this soil, and a lot of growers that are growing in pots that run a lot of fertilizer, and which again, those fertilizers have a huge, enormous amount of consequences to them. If you ever want to get into it, it's a great little article, or not article, PDF, the effects of intensive fertilizer used on the human environment. It's a very great read. So if it verifies anything I'm saying on this part. So basically, when we come back over here, you have the understanding that if you want to use this, you're going to have to stay on top of when the plants are feeding. Know that. You're going to need to know the ideal fertilizers or nutrients that they need at that specific time, and try and reduce those other things. And then also understand that if you let the soil dehydrate too much or dry out, and you're not providing enough water often enough, everything's going to shut down. So then we come over to humus. Okay, so again, this soilless media is the GoPro. The Grow Earth is more similar to this one over here. This black thick layer is, when you go out to nature and to forests, you put your hands in the soil, it's thick. I mean it is so difficult to put your hands into that soil, and it's just so thick and heavy once you get past the leaves and stuff, so thick and heavy of growing matter that's what it wants. When you fertilize, you fertilize once, and then that fertilizer actually just hangs out in there and waits for all the microbiology, all the funguses to go out and retrieve those minerals. So let's go into a living soil a little bit. So what happens is the roots release hormones in the forms of sugars, which then go and attract the funguses that live in the soil. The fungi, they go out and retrieve specific minerals. Those minerals are the trace minerals, as well as the macro minerals is like the phosphorus, the potassium, the zinc, the copper, whatever the plant needs for to bring minerals into to build its structure. Those funguses go out, dependent upon the sugars that are released at different types of cycles, whether through vegetative cycle or through flowering cycle. It will attract specific funguses to go and retrieve specific minerals that the plants need at that time, leaving behind the other minerals it doesn't need. In the meantime, worms are producing bacteria. Why is those bacteria so important? Bacteria produce basically an enzyme. What is an enzyme? An enzyme is the key to those minerals. So those minerals that are floating around, they aren't actually totally available yet until those bacteria produce that coenzyme or that key that goes and unlocks those minerals that then allow those minerals to be available so that those funguses can go and pick up those minerals and bring them back. And then after that point, because there's a good mixture of water and all that stuff, those minerals actually get absorbed into the water and then get transferred into the roots. And that really is the basic of living soil. So when you are using a soilless growing media, you are making it very difficult for that all these living bacterias and funguses to grasp onto anything, and basically provide an environment for them to exist. And so that's why when you are using a soilless growing medium, you need to use a soil moist, because that takes place of the humus. I apologize, the humus. I just ate a sandwich. And it goes into that as well. So we come back over to one last quick part, the law of minimum. The law of minimum basically states that the least amount of mineral is actually what controls all the other minerals. So, for example, you have sulfur. It says nitrogen right here. You have potassium, the microbes, all this stuff. Well, if you have I'm gonna make up something very random. Don't hold me to any of these minerals and stuff. Just understand that all minerals have co-relationships. So this mineral works with that mineral, and that mineral works with this mineral, and this mineral works with that mineral. And if you don't have a well-balanced set of minerals, then this mineral won't be able to work with that mineral, and that mineral won't be able to work with that one, which throws everything out of balance. So again, the law of minimum basically states that the least amount of mineral, it actually regulates all the rest. So you might be topping out on all these minerals, but because your microbes are this low, it makes all these other minerals only available to this level all the way around, and then it locks out all that other stuff. The problem with that is that all this other stuff creates high electrical conductivities, which then short you out. So when you increase your microbes, that allows the water to be totally full. Water, again, is what? Water is what allows the minerals to be absorbed. When you have a full set of minerals, the water can actually hold the maximum amount it can hold, and then it allows the maximum amount of minerals to be absorbed into the water. And then as the plant is sitting into that beautiful environment, the plant is able to max out its uptakes because of the microbiology knowing when to go out there and get exactly what it needs when it needs it and bring it back in. And you're not growing a weak plant, but you're growing a strong plant. Have a wonderful day, guys, and have a great grow.